So we had a bit of a challenge knowing what to call this session in terms of should this be outreach in the UK or outreach in Romania. But I think, István, you suggested it was mission to Hungarians. But István, maybe you could explain the difficulty. Why none of you, I think, are based in Hungary. So maybe you could explain your situation, and then Sándor, I can come to you.
Thank you. First of all, we say that mission to Hungarians because we are trying to reach out to Hungarians living at the moment in London or surrounding cities. They come from all over the place, so the furthest person that comes is from the Scottish border. And she still comes at least once or twice a week. A month, yeah, about once or twice a month. So we try and reach Hungarians from all over the UK. But also we are trying to reach Hungarians that come from Hungary, from Romania, Slovakia, and Ukraine. So that's why we are saying mission to Hungarians in general, wherever they come from.
Tünde, you're originally from Hungary.
Well, strangely enough, I'm the only one from Hungary, a Hungarian from
István,
Hungary.
you're from Romania.
Yeah. Well, I would disagree with that. We are all from Hungary. It's just only that the historical Hungary we are from. The present Hungary is just only Tünde, yes.
Well, they moved the border, I know.
We didn't move the border.
I'm from the Hungary that is still called Hungary.
Maybe, Sándor, could you explain your situation? Where are you based? What's your role?
Well, I'm a pastor in Türgumureș in a Baptist church, and there are 4 other small works beside where I'm involved, small churches or mission stations. That's my situation. Yeah.
Okay. So István, describe sort of the work you do amongst the Hungarians in London. So maybe describe your role and the work you do and the opportunities you have.
Thank you. Well, at the moment I'm the pastor of the Hungarian church, but although it's called the Hungarian church, really it's a Hungarian mission because we don't have people that are actually settled in London because they move all the time. So we have a moving congregation which moves constantly. It used to be in the past that people used to come in September and they stayed till June, July, or May maybe, depending on their circumstances. But now there's a constant move, which moves all the time. So it's rather like being in a busy corner of a busy street, but with the privilege of people actually listening to your sermon from the beginning to the end. You may see them again, you may not see them again.
Maybe describe sort of the size of your church and such like.
Oh, well, when we started the ministry there, we had an average congregation of about 25 people, but then the Lord has blessed it, so now we have 2 services, one in the morning at 11 o'clock and one at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and Bible studies and prayer meeting in between. So at the moment, on an average Sunday, we would have, I think, about from 50 to 60 people in the morning and from 25 to 35 in the afternoon, but 2 different congregations. So the same people will not stay for the morning and the evening congregation because they come from a very long distance and they had to travel a lot just to get there and back.
And the leading a church where you've got such a fluid congregation, how do you manage that? How do you tackle the problems of so many people moving on, going back to Hungary or Romania?
Well, it's constant prayer and it's constant outreach, constant evangelism. So it's a non-stop thing. So whenever you come to my services, there will always be an evangelistic message on it. Whatever the text comes from, there's always a... Put it this way.
Maybe Sándor, coming to you. Could you describe the main challenges you see in your work and Tünde?
Yes, well, first let's start with the fact that the Baptist churches are still not very well-known churches. And also, I mentioned about the openness, a certain kind of openness, especially in Mureș area, that had an effect of the Jehovah's Witnesses and the Seventh-day Adventists growing the greatest in the whole Romania according to proportions. So the proportion of the population is the highest. So they were really, they used this openness in time and they got a lot of people. Also, the other thing which is, I think, banging more and more on the door is this, just whatever we have in the West. Relativism and just postmodernism, basically taking everything into one. With the newer generations, they are really occupied on the social media and not believing anything, and just not too keen on knowing any truth, because they don't believe there is anything like that. And also the relativism, where they would say, well, it's fine with you, maybe I will listen to you because I'm polite and maybe even interested in what you do, but not for me, thank you. So it's the same sort of mentality like probably you would meet here.
And that must have changed dramatically since the 1980s. You must have seen a dramatic change in the kind of the social context, the spiritual climate
Yes.
in Romania.
Exactly. I cannot emphasize this enough. We had a window of opportunity maybe for 10 years, from the 1990 to 2000, or the first years of 2000, well, maybe even up until 2010, maybe, but I'm giving a bit more than I should. But in the last 10 years or 5 years even, I think this change is just accelerating even more and more and more. New generations are growing up on the internet, basically, and more people come through universities, and the universities, I think, just program people to think in a globalized way.
And this is, so you would agree with all the points that Andrew was making in terms of postmodernism?
I would. Especially for the new generations who come. There you see the older, maybe traditional views in rural areas, or with the older middle-aged older generations. But with the newer generations, you still find some clear-headed people, so to say, at least believing, the normalities of life. But with many, what is normal is being negotiated really hard,
And Tünde, maybe you could come to you in terms of what opportunities do you find? I think you have a strong youth work in the work you do in London. Maybe you could describe some of the opportunities you have for the work there.
Oh yes, thank you for that question. Yes, we have a lot of opportunities. I think the main opportunity is when people come, live abroad or move abroad to a foreign country. People are much more open to the gospel because they feel lost. So they feel they need somebody to help them. And if some people, not everybody turns to God in that situation. So that's why they come to church. So that's a good way to reach them. But that also poses a problem, because when they get what they want, then they say, thank you, God, and they leave. So they think, a good job or a good accommodation or paying off their debt is good enough, and they don't need anything more from God. So that's a challenge, actually. To find friends and stability. So when people have a more established life here, then they don't feel the need so much to seek God. So pointing them to Christ is a real difficulty in that matter. The opportunities are good with the children's work mainly, because when people come with young families, they want their children to speak Hungarian, not to lose their mother tongue. So coming to a Hungarian church actually will help that. So that's a good reason why they come to church. And then we have a Sunday school during both services. So both families can pick which service they want to come, because we will have a good Sunday school for the children. And we teach them the Bible. And more often than not, the children bring their parents to church because they like it so much. They, Mom or Dad, let's go to church. So we often hear the parents say, I was really tired, but I had to come. So that's quite good. Unfortunately, youth work is a bit wobbly, because again, the same reason, when the children are not brought to church by their parents, or or when they have more activities, then they tend to, a bit, and families as well. When their children are secondary school, there is so much going on. I'm sure that's your experience as well. So it's all the sports and outings and friends and whatever. So they don't have as much time or desire to come So we have a few young people. We have a teenage Bible study, but a lot less than the children. István mentioned how many people we get into church on a Sunday. That's only the adults. He always counts the adults. So the children, we would probably get around 15 to 20 children in the morning and around 5 to 10 children in the afternoon.
Do you find there are opportunities to reach out to the parents? You mentioned they would often come to church. Are there other opportunities?
Oh, they sit through the service. Well, the parents are in the service listening to the preaching, and the children are in the Sunday school. So obviously, yes, so these are parents who would actually be drawn to church, but sometimes it's the children who are more eager to come. So I'm not saying the parents don't want to come, they do, but sometimes it's just children urging them to, yes, please, today as well.
Sándor, I think you have a very strong youth work, including the summer camps. Maybe do you want to describe that a bit?
Well, we have quite a lot of ways of reaching out. We work with children apart from Sunday school. That's the children's club. We call it a door to the city, and it is actually. People just turn up, you would never imagine, from a notice by Facebook or something, even like that, or friends or classmates. We also work with disabled people as well, but because you have asked about the young people, we would get quite a lot of students, because Turgumurás is being a university and a medical center as well. We have students coming from similar churches as ours. We find this as a challenge. So, for example, we are in a similar situation in the sense that after 3 or 4 years, we always have a change in the youth group. And during the last 15 years since I'm working, we always had a kind of good, strong youth group, but sometimes we just didn't have that. Most of the time we did. Sorry, not always. Most of the time we did quite a good, had quite a good, strong youth group. What we find more and more challenging is to find that maybe young people who have gone to church at home, they lose that as they come to university, and also newer churches spring up in the town, and they pose a possibility to shop around. And so this consumer mentality gets them lost many times. Why we expect them to come to us? Well, because they come from similar churches than ours. They come from the churches which are in the same convention as we are. But we find they many times end up in different churches, not always in good churches or solid churches, evangelical enough churches, maybe just these fashion churches which come and go. These new churches, although they are being established, I don't think most of them are real growth in the city. It's just basically drawing other members from other churches. So that's how they are established. And so this is a greater and a greater challenge, with the fact that the newer generation is less and less committed to anything. So that's the challenge in the youth work. But in the last year, and even I think the beginning of this school year, we had a good lot of young people. So we were able to organize a youth conference last March for the mission zone we are working in. That's from Turgumurás down to Brașov, that's the mission zone. So about 150 people, young people came, and it was a great blessing to the church as well as to the young people, because we still do it in a traditional way. We are hosting the young people in every way, feeding them and giving them accommodation as a church. So it was a great challenge. Can we do it? Can we accommodate maybe 70 to 100 people? And by God's grace, we were able to, yes.
Maybe István, and I'll open up for questions after that. Could you describe what you see as the main challenges in your role and in your situation?
Well, the main challenge is at the moment basically just keep alive. One of the big problems we faced last year due to Brexit and the good family policy of Hungary, so many people have left us that we find it really a struggle just to keep alive. But by the goodness of God and answered prayer, we are still around. So that's one thing.
This is many people coming to your fellowship and then
Yes.
going back to Hungary or Romania. And
Yes.
And do you normally find that they would then find an evangelical church in Hungary and Romania with having gone back from?
Yes, they do. So we are very encouraged by the fact that after they leave, sometimes we see their posts on Facebook that they have joined local churches. So that's quite encouraging that we are actually feeding the local churches back home. So that's encouraging. The other big challenge that I would like to talk about very briefly is that now, unfortunately, with the big influx of people, we do have sects or cults coming to our churches as well. So I find in the past few years that I have spent quite a lot of my time trying to put things right, or undo the bad things that these sects or cults were telling my own people privately within the church. So that was quite challenging, and it really increased our prayer life a lot.
So maybe I can ask, anyone have any questions for Tünde or István? Sorry, if you could speak in the microphone so the people on the streaming link.
Did you do some work in Manchester?
Yes, we were trying to plant a church in Manchester and Cardiff, but the Lord didn't allow us to do that, which was very painful at the time, because we had put quite a lot of effort in it. But now, looking back, I can see the wisdom of the Lord, because due to Brexit and changes in the Hungarian politics, people have left with their thousands, and they went back to their native countries. So I think that's why the Lord didn't allow us to actually start the church, because it wouldn't be able to survive. Thank you.
I think Western Europe tend to be a bit ignorant about Eastern Europe. I'm always interested in history. I mean, back in about the year 1900, there was the Austrian-Hungarian Empire, and the Balkans were largely considered vassal states. Now, then, of course, post-war, you had the Iron Curtain come down, and your part of Europe was very much influenced by the Soviets. Now it's largely gone. I mean, is there interrelationship much with Austria, or is it rather separate now? And likewise, your culture and your understanding as you Eastern Europeans compared with the Western Europeans, where we have been expanded to colonies and international trade and people move from one area to another. You must be more focused on your own internal culture. So what is it that inspires Eastern European spirituality? If you say one thing now that now in Hungary or Romania, what would inspire spirituality there?
Or maybe, Sándor, do you want to start by just giving us a bit of a recap on the recent history to start with? Maybe you could say, how has modern Romania and modern Hungary come about? And maybe you could, maybe you could give something about the main influences on the spiritual climate. But maybe,
yes.
Sándor, you could.
Well, just a brief historical background. It's due to Hungary, the Greater Hungary, or the Hungarian-Austrian Empire, that we get Hungarians from all over around Hungary. You know that after the First World War, in Trianon, 2/3 of Hungary was given to the neighboring nations, a big chunk to Romania, the largest part, with most people. So that's where they get people from Ukraine, Slovakia, Slovenia, Croatia, Romania, Ukraine, from all over Hungary, Hungarians coming and working around here and just meeting up with them. So this is the brief history.
And how did, once at the end of the Soviet era, the end of the Eastern Bloc, what happened to the evangelical churches there? Did the evangelical churches grow quickly after that in the Hungarian areas?
Yes, I think we had I would almost say, a little bit of a revival-like sort of thing. The freedom was well, that spiritual climate, what the communists produced, made people very hungry for spiritual things. And the Christian churches, the evangelical churches, probably could use the opportunity quite well compared to the situations. Of course, cults and other waves of spirituality like, you know, Hinduism and Buddhism and just New Age sort of thing also came into the country. But just at the fall of communism, people were very hungry to spiritual things, because after 40, 50 years of, you know, just impossible to hear about God too much, they were really hungry for that, yes.
So you saw strong growth in the evangelical church. That growth has now tapered off as secularism has come in, would that be fair to say? But still there is openness in Hungary and in Romania? Do you see many barriers to, at least the political barriers to the gospel?
Political barriers we don't have whatsoever. Traditional barriers we still have. Like, you know, some of the traditional churches would oppose evangelical work still, and they would have a say, especially in rural or remote areas where the people are still greatly influenced by their own churches. We get animosity from them, if we get any. Government-wise, politically, we enjoy freedom, but we feel the wind of political correctness, which will, you know, hinder us greatly, as well as you are hindered already. So I hear stories that somebody is praying in front of an abortion clinic and gets arrested, and just you cannot preach so openly on the street these days. That wouldn't be the case with us. It's just only that you have to ask permits for everything, but they would happily grant it, especially if you are an acknowledged denomination within Christianity. So that's usually respected these days even, and there is a fashion after communism to go to church, whichever church you go to, but there is a sort of movement where people just go to church who maybe denied God before even.
And Tünde, what do you say are the main influences over the spiritual climate in Hungary and Romania?
Just recently we had a visitor from Hungary, and he said that they are trying to introduce meditation and mindfulness into schools. So going back to...
Sorry, there was some distortion on the mic. Maybe you could say that again, please.
So they are planning to introduce meditation and mindfulness in schools in Hungary. And back to your question, what inspires spirituality? Unfortunately, the wrong things. So going to these things that people think are spiritual and they calm you down, but they are actually the wrong things. And now they are mainstream. So even a professor who is a professor at a Christian university or so-called Christian university is the main advocate of introducing mindfulness in schools. So this is...
or even some traditional shamanism as well?
Well, I don't know that. Maybe. I don't know about that. But yeah, maybe in Transylvania, yes. But definitely in Hungary there is a shift towards, you know, normalizing Eastern religious influence in schools, might be.
Is there probably time for one more quick question, if there is one? In which case, there's no other question. Maybe I could just ask, maybe Sándor, could you summarize just a couple of things for us to pray for you? And then maybe I'll come to István and Tünde, if you could say the same.
Well, pray for us, because churches, I think we suffer suffer because of secularism. Pray for us in our endeavors to reach out to people in our different ministries. Like the Children's Club, we try to set up a Teenagers Club. We don't know if it will work. That's just locally. And also for the youth work, for the disabled work, for the camps in the summer. I forgot to mention about those, but anyway.
So how many people do you get? How many kids do you get to the camp, by the way?
Well, 30, 40 in the last 3 years. From young people, about 20, because we do very special camps, like out in the wild. But with the young people, I mean, with the children, we go to a proper camp. Just generally for Christian workers, for pastors, we have a shortage of pastors and Christian workers, so that more would come forward and come through. And also for the spread of good theology among our churches. We are involved in Bible school work as well, and we try to influence our churches with good theology. So that's a great need. I think the truth will make us stand.
Are there Bible colleges in Hungarian-speaking Bible colleges?
Yes, we have a theological seminary, which is quite good, but also we have 4 mission zones in our convention, in the Hungarian convention, which is part of the Romanian Baptist Union. But in every mission zone there is a Bible school, but obviously the teaching may vary compared to who is teaching there and what sort of theological approach one has. I mean especially the Székelyland mission zone, which I'm part of, and I was put in charge 2 years ago to restart the Bible school, which was left off about 8 years ago. So we had 11 students finishing last year, and we started with 6 this school year. So we are hoping to help the churches in this way. Maybe some of them can be later pastors as well, or just elders, good Christian workers. Please pray for that too. And I'm also involved in some little radio ministry. Through that, the gospel may be preached as well. Yeah.
Thank you, Sándor. István?
Well, very briefly, I would ask for 3 prayer points. One of them, it would be to pray for the church that the Lord may provide suitable leaders that are born again and willing to work for the glory of God. The second would be that the Lord may renew our strength and energy. It can be quite tiring to do this work with a constant movement of people. And the third one, it would be very personal. So I would kindly ask you to pray for the conversion of our 4 children.
Sorry, you said?
Conversion of our 4 children.
Did you get their names?
Yeah, Adam, Anna, Aaron, and Sarah. Thank you.
Tünde, István, Sándor, thank you very much.